Hey guys, it is your girl Naj. I am back here to bring you another video. I need to talk about Spare. We need to talk about Spare. It was so good. The haters, of course, are continuing to crawl out of the woodworks. Of course, they're all just minions of the royal family and the trashy tabloids. But I really wanted to talk about this, and I actually kind of wanted to relate it to the Free Britney movement a little bit, because we all know that Britney Spears has been a little bit off lately. There was finally a sighting of her recently at a restaurant in, I think it was Woodland Hills or something like that. But I kind of I actually went on Amazon Prime, and I was looking at, there's two documentaries about Britney Spears. There's one called Controlling Britney Spears. That's the second one. And the first one I'm blanking on it. It's Framing Britney Spears. So there's two, and it's basically two parts. And I just got to thinking about all of this nastiness with Britney Spears, how there were people who were really like trying to control this woman, basically use her as a puppet, especially her dad, Luann Taylor. And Luann Taylor, the reason I laugh is because whenever I hear people say her name, it sounds like they're saying Luam Taylor, like Pan Am Airlines. Luam Taylor. I think it's actually just like the southern accent, like Luam Taylor. Luann Taylor and what is his name? Lufty, the guy, her dad, Jamie, like they have all literally used Britney, controlled her in order to reap their own benefits. Let's not even get started on TriStar. One of my favorite influencers, Sloan, he has talked about this. Sebastian Soto has talked about this. A number of other people have talked about this. Rich Lux. So the reason I saw sort of a parallel between the Free Britney movement and what's happening with Harry and Meghan is because it started off basically where everybody loved Britney Spears. You know, if we're thinking back to the early 2000s, which I recently made a video talking about how the early 2000s were so much better. Britney Spears sort of, the height of her fame started to come when technology was really developing and social media was starting to explode, and just this exchange of information just heightened super fast, super quick. And it's almost like they turned on her, you know, it's like they turned on her. They framed her in this good girl image. And then when it showed like, hey, I'm also my own person, and she started to speak out for herself, I was like, oh, no, we're coming to destroy you. And so I sort of saw a parallel with this, with Harry and Meghan. And at the end of the day, what I keep coming back to is control. It is control and manipulation. So I read Spare. It was amazing. I listened to it with Audible, and oh my goodness, I am so proud of Harry and Meghan. But I particularly want to talk about how proud I am of Harry with this book. He spoke so truthfully, so genuinely, eloquently, but at the same time very easy to digest, not too hard to comprehend, you know, very easy to follow. And he chronicles it all out. So if you haven't read it, I really recommend for you to read it. So I won't basically, you know, just explain the book. I won't basically give a summary of the book, because you should go and read it, and I really think you should. I really want to talk about how the media and the royal family and the trolls really want to control this narrative from Harry and Meghan, and how it's making Britain look super duper stupid. How it's making the royal family really look like they have missed out on a huge opportunity. And how it makes these people who were spreading all of these disgusting lies online just look absolutely psychotic. So yeah, let's talk about this. Now, I want to talk about this control aspect because I really think that is where the bulk of frustration comes from with Harry and Meghan, from the royal family, from the tabloids, and from the trolls. I think that Great Britain, and as I've said in another video, I love Great Britain. I love British history, I love British culture. I lived in London for 6 months, and to see a country that I admire and love so much representing itself as a breeding ground of bigotry and racism and just a lack of empathy, a huge amount of hatred, it really breaks my heart, and I think it's breaking the world's heart right now, honestly, because it basically shows we are not as progressive as we thought we were. I see a lot of parallels with, if we want to kind of compare the UK and the US with Obama's presidency to Trump's presidency. Like the beginning of, the Sussexes, I can never say that word, at the beginning of Harry and Meghan's, how do you want to call it? They're taking on of their roles as royals. At the beginning of their career as royals together, of course, Harry had been in this world his whole life. But at the beginning, when they both were dating, when they got married, there was a lot of hope that they presented. People saw, oh, wow, this really could be a defining moment for Britain, for Great Britain, for the British monarchy, because, we're entering into this new phase, like, this is so diverse, it's multicultural, it's crossing borders and territories. I feel like at that moment, there was so much pride around them both, from both the US and the UK. And we all know the US and the UK have a very dubious relationship with one another. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it ain't. And so I feel like that, in comparison to Obama's presidency, like Harry and Meghan, the beginning of their relationship is sort of like Obama. And right now, we're at Trump. We're at the phase where we took like 10 steps forward and then we took like 80 steps backward. So here we are, we have these two people who are showing what it's like to live in an international world. You've got two people from two different countries who in the past have been adversaries and allies. You got a biracial woman and you've got a white male, integrating races, integrating cultures and backgrounds. You have an actress and a royal, on so many different boundaries, they're breaking down these walls. And at the beginning, I feel like people were concerned that there might be road bumps ahead in the UK, but, the bulk of that emotion was hope, And I can kind of see that in relation to the Obama administration going to the Trump administration. Now, I just want to talk about corruption a little bit, because in the book, Harry talks about Diana, he talks about Diana's death, how it affected him, how he was really not able to cry. Like he cried once when her body was being lowered into the ground at her funeral. And he also talks about, being a 12-year-old kid and, walking behind the casket. He talks about, leading up to the funeral procession, shaking people's hands. Their hands were so wet from them crying, and he couldn't cry because he had suffered a trauma inside of a family that doesn't like to deal with emotions. And he goes very specifically into the moment his dad comes to tell him that his mother has passed. His dad sits down on the bed. He says, "My dear boy, your mom's passed." He doesn't hug him. He doesn't console him. He doesn't say, do you want to talk about it? He doesn't have a long, extended emotional response to protect his child emotionally, And he was very cold and stoic. He basically just puts his hand on his knee, and that's the length of the physical consoling that he gets from his dad at this point where arguably one of the most important people in his life has passed. And, one of his biggest advocates, because we've all known that tampon gate Charles has always been a cold fish. Even though I do think that in comparison to Elizabeth, there are some things that he's much more progressive with. He's certainly been more progressive on things like climate change and education. But generally, I find him to be a cold fish. And Harry details how difficult it was from his adolescence through his young adulthood to reconcile this loss with his mother. And actually for so long, he thought that his mother was still alive. It's almost like a way where people sort of block out trauma. If they've been abused or something, sometimes they block out memories so that they don't have to deal with it. It's almost like he kept her alive in his head, saying, oh, she's alive somewhere, and she's going to come and get us after a while. But we all know that this is just PTS, this is just trauma and the way that he was dealing with it. He details his time in the army. And as someone with many veterans in my family, I actually, although I could never see myself, going to the army, it's something that I think I would totally be a chicken about. Having people in my family and seeing what they have sacrificed to fight for their country, and not just their country, but for innocent people elsewhere, I have major, major respect for it. And these tabloids, these trashy tabloids, took what he said in the book completely out of context, acting like he boasted about 25 people. And that was not in any way how he presented this. He touches on every single facet of the emotional spectrum there, of him feeling like, the oxymoron of being in the military, sleeping and waking up to a mouthful of sand and, like eating crap, only being able to talk to your family 13 minutes a day, literally fighting for your survival, helping innocent people. He talks about the trauma, the anger, the joy, the camaraderie, the fraternity, every aspect of that in a humble and very, very sensitive way, and they, of course, they take that and flip it around. I also watched a coverage from Fox, and they had some random African-American pastor or priest basically saying, oh, I feel sorry for Harry, and that's another thing that's like internalized racism. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to get a black person to be, I'm sorry, not racism. It's like, it's almost like they're like, okay, so his wife is black, so we're going to get someone black to trash Harry, and that means that we invalidate everything that Harry and Meghan have been saying from the beginning, which you can't deny that this is all about just racism and xenophobia and bigotry. It's just nasty. And even when I go online to look up videos from others who have the same opinion as me, which I know that there are a lot of us. There are a lot of us who support Harry, support Meghan, support the causes that they are trying to uphold, because I talk to them. I talk to them in both real life, IRL, and online. So I know that these people exist, but yet when you go on YouTube, you go on Reddit, every single thing is negative. Every single thing is clickbait trash, and you go into those videos and the comments, the things that these people are saying, it just makes no sense. And I wish these people would just be honest and say, I don't like them, and just show their nasty, xenophobic, racist colors, because that is what this is all about at the end of the day. You cannot tell me, as a moral human being, especially as a Christian, I'm not going to get into religion, but I cannot see in any way how you can call yourself a person, a believer, and you set yourself on the side of the history where two people say, we've received racism, sexism, bigotry, gaslighting. We've been threatened. Our lives have been threatened. The lives of our children have been threatened. You cannot tell me two people say this and your response is to say, you're a liar. You're a liar and I'm glad you're gone and you suck and you deserve to, and I wish you'd be paraded around the streets naked. If you are that type of person, I cannot see in any way how you can call yourself a believer. So let's call a spade and just say this is just hate, like a big old nasty ball of hate. And I'm so disappointed in the UK because they had a rare and unique opportunity to really have this be something that they could use to propel them towards a more progressive, integrated world, to really put behind their past of racism and slavery and move forward with a new, foot forward. They just gashed that up. And William and Charles, they have essentially turned their back on their family. They won't have a relationship with Diana's grandchildren, Archie and Lily, and it's disgusting. Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting. So, very briefly, just before I wrap up here, I also want to talk about Kate and William specifically. Kate, William, Charles, and Camilla, they all give off these vibes of basically having had tried to make Harry choose between them and the woman that he loved and his growing family. And Harry, being the honorable man that he is, chose his family, his real family. Because sometimes your family is not the people who you share blood with. I love my family. My family, don't if you guys are watching, don't take offense to this because I'm not talking about y'all. You guys are great. But I do know that sometimes blood does not equate to being family, because sometimes family can be so toxic. And I'm not saying that Harry's family, the royal family, maybe didn't have good intentions. They perhaps did have good intentions. They're just dealing with it in a very toxic, negative way. And even at some point where Harry had told Charles that, he was going to therapy and he felt like he was really benefiting from that. And Charles could benefit from coming too. Charles never responded on it, never came to therapy with him, mocked the whole fact that he was going to therapy to deal with his trauma. That's toxic. That's toxic family 101. Camilla and Charles entertaining the very people who just spread these rancid lies and hate towards Harry's wife. They entertain these people. It's just disgusting. I want to talk a bit about William and the fight between Harry and William. I won't go into it too much because it's just salacious drivel, really, at the end of the day. And William should be ashamed of himself. He really shows his colors as someone who is hateful, spiteful, has anger issues. And yeah, maybe he's playing a dutiful boy for the royal family. But I don't see how you could betray your own brother like that. Kate, I feel exactly the same way about her. She's got very mean girl vibes. And they have missed out. They have put themselves on the wrong side of history, and they're missing out. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe.